and CEO of Productive Corporation. Joined alongside me is, half man, half replicant, 3/4 max headroom, Pete Greco, VP of Sales and Technology. He's more than 100%, and he will be talking to you, and we will be talking to you today about how to be more secure in 2014. If you have come to one of our events before, thank you. If you have not, this is how we do it. We take our years and years of experience. We take the things we've learned from working with thousands and thousands of customers across the U.S. and Canada, and we share that with you. Today we're doing it in the Knowledge Series. We have seen some things that elite organizations are doing and contemplating, and we want to just talk about them. We want your feedback. We have a chat feature to utilize if you have questions, and that is what we're going to do. So let's get some knowledge on. Pete, let's crank through and talk about what we are going to talk about today. Well, first of all, we are going to meet Productive in 1 minute. We're going to then get into the areas of, hey, what are elite organizations doing? SIEM log management, get into virtual environments and agentless protection, third-party patching, which is always hot for us, MDM, why encryption matters, and like I said, throw out some different questions. One thing that Pete will really be enjoying himself if he stutters and stammers. That to me is a great sign that he's having a great time. So he may not act like it, but that's what makes him feel the greatest. So with that, let's kick it off. We are going to first meet Productive Corporation in 1 minute or less. Who is Productive Corporation? Well, that's a great question. Productive is a security and storage software expert for mid-sized companies. We offer, tons of expertise. We have specialized execs so that you don't have to wait on hold or navigate the publisher yourself. We have tons of resources on our website. Everything from custom quotes, product documentations, trial downloads, all of it can be found on productivecorp.com. We also have developed a lot of third-party content specifically for the mid-market. 2-minute tech, P guides, all sorts of kind of things around, whether it be patching or encryption or DLP. All of this can be found on productivecorp.com/content. The bottom line is we have the resources to help you. Help at productivecorp.com, 800-726-4099. We are here to help. And one of the ways that we do this is by putting on educational events. Years ago, our customers asked us, hey, what are you guys seeing here? What do you like about this technology? And we have a lot of informal conversations with our customers. And, about 2006, 2007, we said, hey, why don't we put these out on the web? So this is another example of what we do and how we bring value into this situation. So enough of my yakking. Let's talk about security in the year of the horse, right? What Pete is going to take you through today is going to start with the big picture, then he's going to get into some particular areas of technology where we see organizations in the mid-market really being successful, really driving the ball forward, not being as reactive, becoming more proactive, and tying these disparate pieces together. I don't want to steal Pete's thunder, but he has worked with thousands of you on thousands of IT security projects. He knows the good, the bad, and the ugly. He is going to share it with you today. Let's give a warm virtual round of applause for Mr. Pete Greco. Pete?
All right. Thanks so much, everybody, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We are going to make this quick and painless, but hopefully we're going to help you identify some ways to solve the pain in your environment. So, some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, obviously, in a little bit of detail, log management. We're going to be talking about how to agentlessly protect that virtual environment. We're going to talk about getting on top of not the Microsoft patches. You need to be on top of those as well, but what else? We're going to talk about all of those tiny little computers that are invading your environment that we call iOS, or we call Android, or we call BlackBerry. Though not as much are we calling them BlackBerry anymore, as it turns out, right? And then we're going to talk about hiding that data on that machine from the bad guys in case they get lost. So in the big picture, the way that I like to think about security is really multiple barriers, right? And if you think about going up to a building like the Pentagon or the United Nations or the White House, right, or even airports anymore, you don't just drive up to the door, right, and leave your car on the curb. There's multiple barriers. There's multiple points where you have to slow down, where you have to zag, where you have to shift something that gives security the opportunity to stop you at multiple vectors. So there's a check-in spot. There's a barricade you've got to stop for. You've got to make a bunch of turns so you can't get going super fast. And that's what we're really talking about doing with security. We want to make sure we're identifying what's happening in the logs. We want to be scanning traffic on the email side before it makes it to the email server or to the endpoint. We want to be filtering that web traffic. We want to shut down openings into the environment, any openings that we have to have in order to conduct business. We want to make sure we're scanning them and making sure that it's legit traffic. We want to monitor what's coming in through the front door via USB or on those mobile devices, right? And what we don't want to do is tempt fate. We don't want to rely on any one thing to be our total protection point, right? And a lot of folks do think, well, I've got my anti-malware, so I mean that covers everything, right? Barely gets you started anymore. 15 years ago, really viruses were really the most of what there was, and then we started seeing some worms and started seeing some other kinds of attacks. Now we have to worry about social engineering. We have to worry about guys being able to con your folks into giving out a password. We need to worry about what kind of data is going off of the environment. Are we compliant? Are we keeping our business safe? Are we protecting our intellectual property? Whole bunch of stuff, and there's a lot of different ways to get on top of it, and we're going to be talking about a little of it right now. So let's get this show underway. We're going to kick it off with logs, right? And this is something that I think a lot about, right? We're looking at, this is just a screenshot from our email server here, right? You can see here 169,000 events just in this one section, right? Where's the threat? If I have an issue here, how can I possibly stay on top of this for just this one server, let alone the whole environment? Right? So much is happening here. And we're talking about 169,000 events in just this one set of log entries. Right? No way to know what's going on, but logs are showing you everything that's going on in the environment. And that's where you really got to be thinking about how do I get on top of this stuff? How do I start really filtering, right? And that's our graphic here. That's what we want to do, is we want to filter out the mundane. This is what's supposed to be happening again and again and again, right? And I love showing people here, look what happens when you log on. Just how many different log entries are getting created from you just simply getting here in the morning. And that's just for starters. So what we need to do is have a great method for being able to filter out the stuff that's supposed to be happening, right? You're supposed to log in and log out. You're supposed to be pinging that file server. You're supposed to be logging into the CRM or doing whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing. That stuff is all on track. What we need to really start figuring out is, where am I getting some red? When do I have somebody guessing at a password? When do I have somebody guessing at a password on a server? When do I have somebody accessing a server that they shouldn't be accessing? Do I have anybody who's creating dummy accounts and then doing malicious activity and then deleting those accounts? How would I possibly find out about that stuff if I'm not actually looking at the log data? But that is an area where folks really are simply not able to pay attention unless they've got a tool to help them out. So security, information, event management, super important for all size businesses. Most folks that have compliance are already doing something like this. They're watching those dashboards. They're creating multiple alerts that allow you to see if this happens and that happens, that's okay. But if they don't happen in the right order, I need to find out about it. If somebody's making changes on the firewall, I need to find out about it. If this kind of thing is happening, I need to get an alert so I can go and learn and see what's going on. If anybody's deleting logs, how do I find out about it, right? We need to log the logging these days to make sure if somebody's actually deleting log events to hide their tracks, we're actually logging that so we can find out what's going on. So a lot of folks that have, yeah.
So why aren't guys using a SIEM?
Yeah, so, couple different reasons, really. A lot of folks I know don't know how to start getting a handle on this. There's also a kind of a little bit of a misnomer that SIEM is really only for the Fortune 500 or the Fortune 1000. And really there are different levels of products for all kinds of different businesses. And the great thing about some of the things that we have on our line card is they are pre-built or pre-established for folks that have HIPAA and have SOX and this kind of stuff. So if HIPAA is an issue to you, there's predefined reports already for you, so you can see that you're on top of that. But as you start getting into the companies where maybe they have 100 or 200 or 300 employees, they don't have time to look at the logs, and they tend to try and not think about it. But then when they have an incident, typically the logs are the first thing that we need to go to start kind of figuring out what happened, what was impacted, what was infected or affected, right? And that's where an entry-level log management program could have gotten them more on the proactive side, which is going to cost them a lot less than being on the reactive side. So I think that first thing is a lot of folks just don't realize that there's a capability for them to get into this space, right? Not every deal has to be $1 million. And so I think that's one of the big misnomers. And I think the second thing is a lot of guys feel like there simply is no way that I can get on top of the logs because I'm just one man. And that's where you start looking at a service like a SIEM Simplified, where we can help you manage those logs. So they know they need to be doing something. They don't have the spare people that they may need, especially if they're generating a lot of log data, and that's where we can back them up with kind of a staff augmentation type service. Right? When you get into those super tiny companies, absolutely, they might not be ready for something like this, but really that size is really probably starting at 100 employees even, so a lot smaller than what a lot of folks realize. And so if you're in that category and you haven't been thinking about log management and looking at those logs and getting an idea of what's going on there, we really should be talking. Okay? Well, let's keep this freight train moving. We don't want the Chinese New Year to expire, and we still have this event going on for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the new way of protecting virtual environments. And what I really should say, Todd, is the newer way. Right? This technology is really no longer brand new. This has been around for a couple of years now. Right? But in the traditional way, what we're talking about, and with physical machines, what we're talking about is putting that endpoint security agent on every single machine. It protects that machine, it reports back into the management console, and it keeps everything on track. Right? With virtual environments, we're able to increase in efficiency and accuracy in a whole new way. Right? What we're really talking about is instead of putting an agent onto each virtual guest, we're going to put a virtual appliance that's in charge of security for your virtual environment on one of those hosts. Some of the big benefits that you get from doing this, you are lightening the footprint a little bit for each of those servers, which is great. It becomes a little bit easier to manage because now what we don't have to worry about is I spun up 30 new virtual machines yesterday. Anybody think about deploying a security agent to it? Or I forgot to tell the security guy, they're instantly protected. Right? There's a couple of studies out there and one says that up to 50% of virtual machines have no endpoint security protection at all. The other one that I saw said 70% have no endpoint security protection at all. So that's a server completely unprotected, right? And part of the reason behind this is you spin those machines up so quick, right? We're now talking about being able to have a new machine in 10 seconds or 15 seconds or 30 seconds versus in the old days where we actually had to pull out the disk or copy from a network share and actually copy data and spin that up and enter the data and so on and so on, right? The guys are just moving so quick. Plus you have less help. So it's more for you to remember, boom, this is going to take care of it for you.
Hey, Pete.
Yeah.
So now, right, we have vendors, right, that offer it same, you can do virtual protection or, you know, physical endpoint protection. Are you starting to see some of our customers look at a multi-vendor strategy?
Yeah, so that's actually a pretty good question, Todd. You know, two different ways you can go, right? One pane of glass to manage everything or the multi-vendor approach. Right? And folks that are really concerned about security are starting to talk to us more and more about that multi-vendor strategy. And a product like this really enhances your capability to do it because most folks are getting that virtual environment under its own management. So usually there's guys that are dedicated to that, and then there's guys who are taking on the workstations and maybe handling the physical machines as part of their duties. And so now you've got basically two different guys managing two different aspects of that environment. And so it's not an issue to have that virtual guy looking at a virtual console and that physical guy looking at a physical console. And if you're doing it that way, you can very easily be running two separate products that now you're taking advantage of two different R&D labs. You're taking advantage of two different philosophies on how to deliver that protection, two completely, totally different heuristics engines, and it can up your game from a protection level. Where does it lower your game? Well, now I've got two different products, and if I'm not actually managing them, and honestly, if you only have one product and you're not managing it, your protection is not going to be effective, or you're not going to find out when it's not effective. So two different philosophies, really, but we are seeing more and more folks starting to really think seriously about that multi-vendor strategy. And in some instances, it's going to cost a little bit more because you're not going to get the bulk purchase savings, but the value that you get from the multi-vendor strategy from a protection standpoint really puts your savings in that proactive category. Again, the cost to be proactive you know, can be as little as 1/5 or as much as 1/20th, depending on which studies you like to look at, of the cost of reactivity. Right? And so that's really just a game changer for a lot of folks. You want to be in that situation where we're maximizing uptime and we're keeping our workload reasonable versus going around putting out fires, including the fire that our hair is on because of all the issues that we have popping up in our environment. Right? So definitely something that a lot of folks are thinking about. And agentlessly protecting those VMs really is that next level in thoroughness and efficiency. One of my favorite features here is the instant on gap coverage. So in our environment, we're constantly turning on and turning off guests. And so with the virtual security appliances, that guest is protected from the second you hit the start button on that virtual management console. So you don't have to wait for the OS to get completely running and then the protection loads. It's protected all the way through the startup. So you're really just reducing that window of non-protection down to virtually nothing. And it's for virtual environments, so what a great word to choose. All right? All right, we'll keep this bus rolling. Todd, you keep those questions coming in.
Absolutely.
How can we close the door on threats? You know, and this is really the way that I think about patch management, right? Because what a lot of patches do is they simply render the threat null. If you look at not just Microsoft patches, right, but if you look at the security patches that are getting released every single week, they all have some common threads. allows remote code execution that could allow an attacker to take control of a machine, could allow an attacker to gain legitimate access, could allow an attacker to elevate or escalate privileges, right? And almost every single patch you look at includes some variation of those words. So an exploit that allows someone to gain control. Once they get the first machine, right, then they can start nosing around and figuring out, how do I get the next machine? How do I get in a machine with administrative privileges? How do I own the whole environment? Right? And these guys have time and patience to be able to do this, and they're sending out a lot of probes. So the easiest thing that we can do is just plug some of those holes. This doesn't solve every issue, right? This doesn't solve an employee leaking data off of a machine, right? It's not going to make them more productive necessarily, but it is going to simply eliminate a bunch of threats from having effectiveness. And if you take a look at a sample report here, I actually did this screenshot off of a very small group of machines, and you could see after just a short time 140 missing patches and 15 missing service packs, right? This isn't an environment that hasn't been patched since 1972. This is an environment that gets patched basically every other week, right? So really got to stay on top of keeping it rolling. So talk to a lot of folks, Todd, who absolutely believe and are aware that Microsoft has a lot of these exploits, right? You hear a lot of folks, well, we're doing the WSUS or we're doing the SCCM, and as soon as that Office patch comes out, as soon as that Windows 7 patch comes out, we're looking at it and we're getting it out there, right? But now we're completely ignoring a whole new host of threats. Adobe Reader, right? We've got Flash. We've got still plenty of folks running BlackBerry Enterprise Server. We've got all the Apple products, including iTunes and QuickTime, right? So just Java, I almost left out the biggest one. Got Java out there. These things are under continuous attack, and they're really starting to outpace Microsoft on the number of security exploits that are identified each month. So everybody's got Reader out there. I know every single person on this call has at least a dozen instances of Adobe Reader, right? And probably realistically, Reader on every single machine that they have. And there's tons of threats in there. So if we're not looking at that, we're not patching that, we're not staying on top of it, you're really allowing gaps in your coverage to propagate. And the more that you ignore that, the more opportunity you have for risk to get invited in there.
So Pete,
yeah.
What about like custom apps in my environment that I have? I mean, obviously, any of these third-party solutions, they can't keep up with everything. I mean, what do I do for that?
Yeah. So, couple things there. Some of the products that we offer, Todd, actually allow for deploying custom patches or delivering software implementation. So that's one of the ways that you can solve it, right? If you have an issue that you've tried to solve and you feel like it's unsolvable, again, that's where we should be talking. And let's have a conversation, and we can take advantage of the experience that we have and the different conversations that we have with both our vendors and our customers to help you identify a way to get on top of that. But even if you're in a situation where, boy, that is about the weirdest thing we've ever seen, we're not real sure that we can solve that issue, simply by taking care of all of this other standard stuff allows you more time to deal with that custom stuff. And, you know, the main thing that I've seen, right, I've been here since 2001. I've talked to tons and tons and tons of customers who are Microsoft networks, 500 employees, 2 to 3 locations, mainly Cisco. And what I can tell you is at the top level, they all look the same. Doesn't take too many questions to start figuring out they're all totally different. Everybody's got their own unique challenges and their own unique headaches and businesses and all kinds of good stuff there. The more stuff that we can automate gives you more time to do that custom stuff or do that strategic stuff that's actually kind of more fun to do anyway. right? So we can solve those problems in a lot of different ways, but it really starts with a conversation so that we can identify what specifically is going on, and let's figure out if it really needs a custom solution or if one of these solutions is going to take care of you.
Hey, Pete, here's a question. I think I know where they're going. I'm going to kind of wordsmith a little bit for you. But so there's a customer out here that's on a web-based Oracle that only works on an older version of Java. Can they just accept that or hold the updates to that certain version of Java, or is there hope that it'll always be that the latest version of Java will always work with Oracle? Right? Which one? That's part of what Oracle's got to tell you, right? I mean, it's their product.
Well, so if what he's saying is, here's what we can't do is if you're running an older version of software, and we have this too, right? We can't run IE10 with one of the browser-based applications that we have. And there's nothing that patch management can do to make IE10 work with this older application, right? So we've given up on that. But what we've been able to do is not apply IE10 or IE10 patches to the machines that can only run IE9. So we put a note in there so that we understand why. Oh, yeah, that's right. That box can't run IE10. And then we've set up some customizations in our patch management software so that on those machines in that specific group, it simply ignores IE10. So I don't accidentally deploy it and I don't create a headache for myself that I already know is a problem, right? But on the rest of my environment, on the machines that don't access that application, well, I want them running the latest patches for everything to make sure that I'm as secure as possible. And again, that's where security gets interesting, right? We were talking at the beginning of this call, Todd and I, about when best practices collide, right? Best practice on your out-of-office messages is to not put any identifiable information coming from your Exchange server so that the spammers can't gain access to it. But then our anti-spam software tags that as spam because not having that information in there, right, is something that an attacker would try and do or that a known spammer would try and do so you can't trace it back to them. So both of those are legit best practices, but that's where they collide. And sometimes it's really about making it work, and that's part of our job is to help you make things work even when best practices are colliding. And sometimes that is
opposing each other.
Yeah, exactly. So let me know. If I didn't answer your question, please let me know. But I think that's what you were getting at. But again, would love to clarify there. So want to talk a little bit. This is a real customer of ours who we had been having an encryption conversation with, and they're really just in a situation where they thought it was a great solution. They thought they were working with our guy here, Chuck Eiten, who some of you folks probably have worked with as well. And I think they thought Chuck was a fine human being, and he is, but they really just didn't have the budget to be able to pull this off. And about, I think it was 6 or maybe 7 months later, they lost a laptop that had patient info on it. And they do a lot of business in California that requires that each customer be notified twice in physical mail, right? And so just the cost of the customer notification with printing and postage, $80K, right? Dismissed earlier, $16K to solve that issue was the cost of the project. And so this doesn't include the fine that they had to pay. This didn't include any reputation damage, right? Just postage and paper. They spent $80K. And so again, back to that proactive versus reactive solution. Once this happened to them, getting that $16K for the encryption package obviously was easily justifiable because they've already spent so much in fines and damage and this kind of stuff. And this is an area where we can help you have that conversation with the right folks so that they can understand the business reason behind this technology. Most of our customers need to understand the technical need, the technical requirement, how does it work, how does it fit in. That's important. The next area where we can really help you, though, is getting this justified to that CFO or that financial side so that they understand that really the cost of this solution is nothing compared to what can happen without it, right? And so what we're really talking about here is encryption, right? The easiest way really to make data non-accessible, especially for those devices that are going into the field or that data that you're putting up into the cloud, right? Email encryption also extremely important if you're communicating sensitive data and can be among the easiest technology for an end user to use. In our environment, we simply mark an email as confidential and it gets encrypted. The end user doesn't have to do anything. They don't have to be technical. What the receiver of that email gets then is an introduction to the fact that they're about to get an encrypted email if this is their first time. They set up their own password. The second that they hit submit and create that password that comes back into our environment where we control it, then they get that encrypted email where they use the password that they just set up. I could set up the passwords if I wanted to, but I need those guys to all be self-sufficient. They get that encrypted email. They open it up. It looks like a PDF file, so it's very familiar to them. They can now download the information that I've sent to them there. They can also reply back inside of that encrypted email, again, hitting a button that they're very familiar with, the reply button, and they can send information back to me in an encrypted format. And again, my end user doesn't have to understand encryption at all, doesn't have to understand anything about tokens or key management or a whole bunch of other words that aren't going to make sense to them, but they're able to meet our security needs and our security requirements in a way that really is very easy for them to understand. So a bunch of different things that we need to be thinking about here for protecting that data. If you're taking advantage of Dropbox, and maybe it's not your plan to be using Dropbox, but you know it's happening out there, how can we protect that data when it's at Dropbox? Let's encrypt it on the way up. We can decrypt it when it comes back, but while it's there, it's completely inaccessible and completely unusable to anybody that might be able to commit a breach against one of those cloud providers. And I'm not just picking on Dropbox. Those guys are all targets because the crimeware guys, the criminal enterprise, they know that there is money in the cloud, right? There's money there ready to be pilfered. So that's an area that we need to look at. You have laptops, you have mobile devices, you have all kind of stuff that is leaving your environment with your sensitive data, your proprietary information, right? So the true cost of losing a laptop is not the hardware, right? It's the data. And for some folks, we've seen some studies saying that the cost can be as high as $54,000 for a lost laptop, right? That's a lot. You're talking about probably a $500 to a $1,500 piece of hardware, right? It's the data that's getting you there. And so look at some of these stats here that Chuck pulled from datalostdb.org. Yeah, I'm here.
Before you get into the stats, how about encrypted email on iOS, Android, or on iOS or Android? So say somebody's got a BYOD environment. Yeah. Are they still able to encrypt that email that sits on there, or?
Well, so when we're talking about email encryption, we're actually talking about when we send an email, so on the send and receive. And so with with an Android device or an iOS device, it's going to work the same way as a workstation or a laptop when it comes to sending that email. That's going to happen at basically at the exchange level, Todd. So if you're worried about the data on that device, now we're talking about device encryption. So if you're talking about the emails that I have in my inbox right now, both on my Outlook on my workstation and on my tablet, which I have here, and my iPhone, which I also have here, right? I can encrypt those devices so that that data as it lays in that state is also unreadable should that device get lost or stolen. Is that what you're getting at? I'm not sure if I'm...
That's what I'm interpreting as the question. So,
let us know if we're not hitting it.
Yeah, totally.
So two different things there. Sending emails that are encrypted, right, in that transmission, and then encrypting my device. Both are possible to be done. And for a lot of folks, you need to be doing both. And then doing that file encryption for anything that you're storing. Well, it can be stuff you're storing on your network as well, but for sure stuff that you're storing off of your network or in the cloud is going to be what most folks are doing. Could be USB sticks, though, as well. We're seeing a lot of folks really starting to get serious about encrypting thumb drives and then only allowing thumb drives that are encrypted and then starting to get much better control over who can use a thumb drive. Probably in the majority of businesses, not every single employee needs to be plugging in a thumb drive, right? No value to it for a lot of folks. Those exceptions obviously exist. So a lot of stats here, right? One laptop lost every 9 seconds. Would be curious how this stat changes when we start talking about mobile phone, tablet, and laptop. And I'm sure some of these laptops that are getting lost, it's everybody's, or the folks are losing all of their technology, in one easy bag grab, right? Tons and tons and tons of sensitive data. Some of these laptops just simply contain information that allows an attacker into your environment where they can really start compromising, right? And most of this data loss is happening in the corporate sector. So really an area that folks who have compliance are doing this or starting to do this, but it really is an area that folks that don't have the compliance requirement still should be looking at for some of their key employees. This isn't necessarily something that you're going to do on every single machine that you own. I have heard a few folks say that they don't know why you would have a machine that's not encrypted. Well, there's tons of reasons why we don't encrypt the servers and encrypt some of the internal workstations. But there really are not too many good reasons for not encrypting stuff that's leaving your environment. So again, this is something that we can help you have that strategic business conversation with the finance and business guys, and we can definitely help you understand the different kinds of encryption technologies, which ones you should be thinking about, and help you enhance your overall security environment there. We're going to keep it moving, Todd.
Yeah, we got to be wrapping this up here pretty quick. So
boom. I'm working hard. I'm working hard. I said I'm working hard.
I know.
So, mobile device management, the last topic on the list, right? And we kind of have talked about this a little bit, right? Tons of smartphones out there in the wild. Tons of tablets coming in. I have a little Android tablet that I bring with me to work every single day now. Love the ability to sync notes between my laptop and my tablet. Very easy to carry that into a meeting. Download a lot of data onto that for reviewing when I have downtime if I'm traveling. A lot of sensitive data on there that we find quite handy to have, right, when we're out in the field. But if someone else gets it, it's a lot of data that I don't necessarily want someone outside of Productive Corporation to have access to. Right? Where are we really going wrong with MDM? Well, one of the big challenges for you all is different from your workstations and your laptops and your servers, great chance that you don't actually own the device. So now you're talking about controlling something that you don't own. That's a big challenge. Not all the devices are the same, and we are seeing more Macs popping up into the corporate environment, right? But overall, when we talk to folks, mostly Windows, right? 99% Windows. Now we're talking about folks having iOS, not Windows, obviously. Talking about Android, not Windows, obviously. Again, it's on the decline, but BlackBerry, not Windows, obviously. Right? So now we're talking about a whole host of new OSs that we're managing. And to make it even more tricky, as I mentioned earlier, we don't own them. So how are we handling this? Right?
Hey, Pete?
Yeah.
So on that, I got a clarification from the BYOD question.
Yeah.
Can we store encrypted data on BYODs, and can encrypted email be read on a on a BYOD?
So that's kind of a tricky question. Yes, if I can receive encrypted email on my iPhone or on my Android tablet, enter my password to decrypt it and decrypt that and read that email. I can do file storage. So if I have a file that's encrypted, there's nothing to prevent me from storing it. The real question is how do I decrypt it, right? Is it a file that got sent to me that I don't own? I might not be able to decrypt it if I'm not the intended recipient, but there's nothing that's going to prevent me from actually storing it on my device.
Okay.
I might not be able to open it, right? Which that is the whole goal of encryption. Guys who don't own it can't look at it. But we can encrypt devices with mobile device management. So as they're storing data, so I have a lot of spreadsheets on my tablet, right? And because I have so much storage on it, just like on our file server, I don't get around to deleting old stuff, right? But I've got that sensitive data there. When I passcode and encrypt that device, makes it unusable outside of my control or outside of Productive's control. Now, I own the tablet. That's my personal property. So if Todd dismisses me after this web event, I hope he won't, but if he does, I'm taking that tablet with me. With MDM now, what he can do is pull off the container, and all that data that I've downloaded, that I've been using, that I've been accessing, my corporate email, my contacts, all that stuff vanishes from my device. That goes back to being just my own personal Angry Birds management tool.
Yep. Hey, Pete, so you're hitting on an issue that I'm getting a bunch of questions on, which is, right, it's not only the tech side, but the policy side. I mean, do most of these customers have a pretty good kind of, end user policy saying, hey, you can put this on your device, but we're going to manage via MDM our data. So in case we're separated, meaning you're no longer an employee here, we can pull off, we can wipe that data, right, and kind of compartmentalize what they're doing?
So having that containerization has actually made it easier for folks to basically develop that kind of written policy, is what I'll call it, Todd, because they're not necessarily going to impact the personal use of that device. So your vacation pictures stay your own, your music, whatever it may be, however poor your taste is, right, remains your own.
You get to keep yours.
Yep, exactly. You get to keep yours, and I get to take my stuff off. Now, you still want a license agreement. You want them to understand that I am going to make you have a passcode. I am going to give you this kind of access. I am going to be able to remove this stuff when you leave, so on and so forth. And that is an area where a lot of folks have been able to really benefit from getting outside advice and be able to take advantage of our ability to kind of share, hey, here's what some other folks have done, and get them set up on a written policy. Now, if you own the device, super easy, right? You're able to control it. You're going to say no App Store, no Google Play, or whatever that, I don't know what BlackBerry's App Store is called, right? You can block that. You can prevent them from downloading and installing any kind of application. You can filter the web. There's all kinds of good stuff you can do there, right? And so that really makes it a lot easier when you control the device, where a lot of folks have really benefited from some additional, consulting or consultation conversations has really been, I don't own the device. We need to have this level of control. How do we make it reasonable for everybody and make the employee feel like they're getting a good value by being able to do this, but help them also understand we still need to protect the overall machine and keep it rolling. So,
hey, Pete, will you pop back to that last slide for a second? And you can
sure.
keep rolling, but there was somebody who was interested in seeing more of those stats.
Yeah, no problem at all. And folks, nothing that we're putting on here is a secret. Very easy for you to go out and find some of the stats. And what we've tried to do here is, look at 3 different sources and use the most conservative stat that we could find. So, some of them really show some of these numbers really, really high. So you can look at the source that you want. But the fact is a lot of guys are getting conked on the head for their device. Had a real crazy story here in the Twin Cities from, I think it was last month, where somebody grabbed an iPhone off of a coffee shop table, when the guy went to chase him down, someone else jumped him on the outside and basically, knocked him over the head so that he couldn't catch the main perpetrator. Unnecessary, but that's the kind of stuff that's happening, right? And so you got to protect those devices. We can't control if they get lost, they fall out of pockets, they get left in airports, they're getting stolen. What we can protect is making sure that they're completely useless, once that happens. So that's the best that we can do. Is make sure that data is unaccessible, unusable, unstealable, basically.
Yep.
Okay?
All right.
So take a look at a screenshot here. I do want to point out when we did this, -13 in the Twin Cities. It was pretty chilly that day. So it was a great day to be inside working on this PowerPoint for you folks. So this is just kind of a screenshot from what this can look like. This is an Android phone. I think it's a Samsung. I think it's Chuck's phone actually. So Galaxy Note 2. Just to give you an idea, so you can have some things that the end user can access, or like with our endpoint protection, right? We can keep all this stuff kind of locked down and hidden, so that their device really still feels like their normal device. A lot of different ways you can set this up and use it, and this is all stuff that we'd love to talk with you about in a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah. So there we go. Wow. Thanks, Pete, and thanks everybody for coming. We're going to put the recorded version of this up on our website under content. You'll see a link to it. The account exec will give you a call, follow up, see if you have any questions. I mean, this was best practice stuff. I mean, we have solutions that will support this. We can talk through kind of what you're thinking and help you down that path. Once again, really appreciate your time. We know you could be spending it doing a lot of other things, and the fact that you chose to spend the time with us is very much appreciated. Once again, Pete Greco, thank you for a fantastic presentation. I'm Todd Obert, along with PG here at Productive Corporation, wishing you a fantastic balance of your day and week. We will talk soon. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.